Before we dive into tonight's story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Every night we explore the hidden secrets of nature together, from the strangest prehistoric beasts to the most mysterious animals of our oceans. Join us so you never miss the next journey. Was the Kraken a curse from the gods, or was it only a legend? Was it truly a punishment sent by divine hands to remind Viking sailors of their smallness before the sea? Or was it nothing more than a tale woven from fear and memory you have seen? The title you have read, the question you have looked at the thumbnail, and you carry the same thought within you right now. And so we begin our journey. Together, a journey across myth and ocean, across the line that separates truth from imagination. Close your eyes and picture the world of the Vikings. The northern seas are black and cold, the wind cuts sharp across the fjords, the sky is iron grey, and the horizon stretches beyond sight. These men sail longships carved with dragons on their prows, their oars dip and rise in rhythm, their shields hang along the rails, their hearts beat fast with courage and with fear. They are raiders and traders and poets and farmers, yet on the sea they are nothing more than men small and fragile beneath. Endless waves, the sea is their road, but also their judge. The sea can bless or it can destroy. It can carry them to glory or pull them into darkness, and somewhere within that sea they whisper of a creature beyond storms and whales and waves. They whispered the name Kraken. The first question lingers: was this beast real? Was it curse or legend? Imagine yourself among them. The night has fallen. The stars are hidden by cloud, the ship creaks and the oars cut water in silence. Suddenly a shadow passes. Beneath the surface boils with bubbles, fish scatter from unseen depths. Men lean over the side, eyes wide, lips trembling. They do not cry aloud, they whisper the name Kraken. For to speak it loudly is to summon it closer, to give fear a body to make. The legend flesh in the world that the Norse myth and truth were not divided. Odin watched from his high seat. Thor swung his hammer across the skies. Loki wove mischief and chaos. Jarmungandr the serpent circled the world, biting its tail. But there were also beings without place in holy verse, creatures that rose from fear alone. The Kraken was one of these, not written in the oldest poems, not carved in temples, but breathed out by men who saw shadows they could not explain and who gave them form. The Kraken was not born in scripture, it was born in fear, it was born in salt spray and darkness. Still we ask, curse or legend? The Norse believed that gods punished as well as rewarded. If crops failed, it was punishment. If thunder struck, it was warning. If seas rose and ships sank, was it not proof of divine anger? Perhaps Odin judged, perhaps Thor roared, perhaps Ran, goddess of drowned souls, cast her net, and in that net took shape a monster vast enough to terrify all who saw it. The Kraken could have been the curse, the hand of gods reaching from the deep, but perhaps it was only legend. Consider the giant squid. A real creature, dwelling far below, unseen for centuries, rarely rising, but leaving evidence in scars on whales or carcasses washed ashore. A Viking sailor might see such a body, pale and massive arms spread longer than a mast, eyes dull and lifeless but enormous. Would he not tell of a monster? Would not the story grow larger with each retelling until the beast became divine, until the tale became myth? In this way, the Kraken could be legend, nothing more than fear given shape, nothing more than the ocean's mysteries. Painted in human words, the Viking sailor lived on the edge of awe and terror. The sea was giver and taker, it carried wealth and death alike. When a voyage failed, an answer was needed, an answer greater than chance. The Kraken provided that answer. It was the voice of chaos, it was the sign of gods, it was the shape of fear made flesh. Each time a ship vanished, each time a storm rose, each time a man drowned, the Kraken was remembered, the Kraken was blamed, the Kraken was alive in story and in silence. Again, the longship fog surrounds the men, the horizon vanishes, the world is only wood and water. The helmsman grips the tiller-tight oars, dip without rhythm. A pale light glows in the wake. Bubbles rise as if something breathes below. The sea roils, a shadow vast as an island moves beneath arms coil and uncoil like forests. Swaying in storm, the ship heaves. Men clutch their shields, their voices fall to whispers. The name passes from mouth to mouth, Kraken. When they return home, their tale grows. The arms are thicker, the eyes brighter, the sea darker, the gods angrier, the story richer, the monster more real. This is how a legend grows. It needs no parchment, no temple, no law. It needs mouths and ears, it needs fear and memory. Together, these weave a monster, stronger than flesh. The Kraken became real, not in bone and blood, but in the minds of men who believed, and belief was enough. Belief could steer a ship. Belief could bind a crew. Belief could spread across generations. The Norse gods were not kind rulers. They were fierce, they were complex, they punished as they rewarded. Thor's hammer could bless harvests or smash ships. Odin's wisdom could guide or mislead. Loki's tricks could gift or ruin. The sea too was double-faced. It blessed, it cursed, it gave, it stole. The Kraken fit this pattern. It was not meaningless. It was not random. It was a message, a sign that the gods were watching, that pride was dangerous, that respect was required. The Kraken was their reminder, carved not in stone but in wave signs, to whispers a possibility. The ocean creates wonders and terrors. A rogue wave, higher than a hall, can smash ships without warning. Currents colliding form whirlpools like mouths opening. A whale breaching beneath a vessel flips it. In an instant, a giant squid rises to die on the surface and shows arms that seem to grasp endlessly to the eye of a sailor. These are monsters to the tongue of a poet. These are curses to the ear of a child. These are legends, all are true, all are the Krakenand. So our first step ends where it began. Was the Kraken a curse? Was it legend to the Vikings? The answer did not matter for them. It was real, in the fear that whispered, real in the rituals that poured ale into the sea. Real in the stories told by firelight, real in the prayers whispered to gods who ruled waves for them. The Kraken was not just a name, it was a law. Respect the sea or be taken. Respect the gods or be punished. Remember the Kraken or risk its wrath now. You to carry the question. You have walked with the sailors, you have heard their whispers, you have seen their shadows, you have felt their dread. The sea remains vast, the answer remains open, curse or legend. The journey has just begun, the night is long, the ocean is wide, the Kraken waits. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Every night we bring you new journeys into the mysteries of nature, so stay with us and never miss the next adventure. The night after the tale has been spoken lingers in the hearts of the men. The ship rocks gently on black water, the torches burn low. The sea is quiet, yet every man feels that quiet as a waiting presence. They remember the whispers, they remember. The question: was the Kraken a curse from the gods, or a legend carved by fear? The answer still floats before them like mist. You can almost hear the crackle of the fire as they speak low to one another. Some say it is real, some say it is story. All agree it is powerful, because in a world without maps, in a sea without mercy, a story can be more powerful than Steva. Vikings built their lives on courage. They crossed seas wider than empires. They fought with axes and spears. They carved runes into stones, yet courage needs balance, and balance comes from fear. The Kraken was that fear, a shadow so vast that even the bravest warriors lowered their eyes when its name was spoken. It was not only terror, but respect. It reminded every man that no skill, no sword, no shield could master the sea. The ocean was always stronger, the gods always higher. The Kraken, always waiting, picture a young sailor on his first voyage. He has heard the stories at home by the hearth. His father spoke of a friend. Swallowed by waves, his mother sang lullabies of sea monsters meant to hush him to sleep. He believed them only half now. He stands on the deck of a longship. The horizon is endless, the water heaves dark and deep, the oars beat like a heart suddenly. A shape moves beneath the surface, fish leap in panic, the sea boils, he remembers the tales, his lips form the word Kraken. It no longer feels like a story, it feels like truth, his truth, and when he returns he will tell the tale too, with his own details. With his own fear, the legend grows. The Kraken was described in ways that no single eye could confirm. Some said it was miles wide. Some said its back was rough like mountains. Some said it was smooth like stone. Some claimed its tentacles wrapped around entire ships, pulling them down. Some said its eyes glowed like moons. Some claimed it made whirlpools, sucking fleets into darkness. Each description added another thread. Each sailor wove his fear into the fabric until the monster was beyond measure, beyond doubt, beyond escape. Still, the question remains: curse or legend? Why would the gods send such a beast? Because the gods were not merciful rulers, they were teachers through fear. Odin gave wisdom but demanded sacrifice. Thor defended men but also brought storms. Loki brought laughter but also ruin. Ran, the sea goddess, cast her net and claimed the drowned. She could smile one day and drag 100 men the next. In such a world, the Kraken was natural. It was the hand of gods, the balance of hubris and humility. If men forgot their place, if they sailed too boldly, if they ignored offerings, then the Kraken came. That was the curse, that was the warning, that was the reminder, carved into wave and foam. Yet legends also need soil. To grow, they grow from what eyes glimpse and cannot explain. They grow from beasts that are real but strange. Imagine a giant squid rising lifeless with arms stretched across the water. Its size beyond belief. Imagine a whale breaching beneath, a ship shattering planks and oars. Imagine a rogue wave rising from calm sea as if lifted by unseen hands. Imagine the sea glowing with living light, fish scattering as if chased by something enormous. The men see it, they return home, they do not say storm, they do not say accident, they say Kraken. And the story grows stronger. So again, you listen and you ask yourself, which is it, curse or legend? Perhaps the answer is both. To the sailor rowing against black water, it was curse. To the skald singing in a warm hall, it was legend. To the family grieving a lost crew, it was proof. To us now, it is myth and memory, both woven together like strands of rope. The Kraken does not need to be one thing, it can be all things at once. That is the nature of stories, that is the power of fear. The Vikings filled their world with beings of awe. Giants walked in the north, trolls haunted the mountains, serpents coiled in the seas. Spirits lingered in forests, yet the Kraken stood apart. It did not belong to one land or one god, it belonged to the sea itself. It was not bound by prophecy or fate, it was bound by fear. Fear carried it farther than armies. Fear gave it more power than kings. Fear made it eternal. Imagine the rituals before a voyage: a bowl of ale poured into waves, a token carved from bone tied to the prow. A song hummed low by oarsmen. They said it was respect, they said it was caution. They did not say the word Kraken, yet every man thought it. The sea was listening, the gods were watching. To slight them was danger, to honor them was safety. The Kraken was not just in story, it was in action, it was in every gesture, meant to keep the ship alive now. Think of the sagas sung by firelight. A skald gathers men and women in a hall, his voice rises and falls like waves. He speaks of heroes, of raids, of battles, then he lowers his voice and speaks of the sea. He speaks of shadows, he speaks of arms longer than trees. He speaks of eyes glowing in the dark. He says a ship vanished with all aboard. He says the Kraken claimed them. The hall falls. Silent children clutch their mothers. Men stare into the fire. Every heart beats faster. The legend grows stronger with every word, and the young will carry it with them to see the tale will never end. The sea itself gave the legend weight. The North Atlantic is vast, and cruel winds shift without warning. Currents twist into traps. Fog blinds even the skilled. Waves rise from nowhere. The Vikings faced this every day, without maps, without charts. Without compasses, they read birds and stars, but the sea could still betray them. In such a world, every failure needed meaning. Every disaster needed a name. The Kraken was that name. It explained it, warned it, taught it, endured, and so we return once more to the question, curse or legend. For the Viking sailor, it was not a puzzle to be solved, it was a truth to be lived. For the poet, it was not fact to be proven, it was memory to be shared. For the grieving family, it was not myth, it was explanation. And for us, it is a story that still lives, because stories are stronger than storms. Stories outlast ships, stories carry across centuries. So, was the Kraken a curse? Was it a legend? Perhaps it was both, perhaps it was neither, perhaps it was the face men gave to fear, perhaps it was the hand gods used to teach. Yet what matters is that it was real in the minds of those who sailed, real in the prayers of those who stayed ashore, real in the sagas that still echo now. The sea is wide, the night is long, the question endures, the Kraken waits. The Viking Age was a time of sails stretched against icy winds and oars cutting endless seas. Their longships were marvels of craft, sleek, narrow, strong. They could slip across rivers and ride the open ocean. Alike the men who rowed them lived half their lives on water. The fjords behind them were steep, dark, and echoing. The horizon ahead was always uncertain for the Viking sailor. The sea was both promise and peril. A path to glory and wealth, a grave waiting in silence, and always in that silence lurked the name whispered in fear, the Kraken. We ask again, was the Kraken a curse from gods or a legend shaped by men? To answer, we must stand on the deck with them. We must feel the salt sting, our eyes hear the creak of oars, taste the cold air, and know how small a man feels before the endless deep. The Norse world was filled with gods and giants. The myths were maps for life. Every force of nature was given a face. Thunder was Thor's hammer, lightning his strike, earthquakes the tread of giants. The sea itself was living alive with will and voice. It was Enged who calmed it. It was Ran who dragged men below. And somewhere in its depths, hidden from sight, a beast waited. The Kraken picture, the northern ocean grey clouds bruise the sky, a thin line of land falls away, the ship is alone, a sudden swell rises with no wind, the water foams as if boiling, the men grip their shields. The helmsman whispers a prayer, a shadow as broad as the ship itself rolls beneath the water heaves, as though something vast has turned. A man gasps, Kraken. The word spreads low from lip to lip, none dare speak it loud. None wish to draw it nearer, yet all believe, all see with the same fearful eye. All feel with the same trembling heart. The Kraken grew larger. With each telling, some said it was as big as an island, others claimed it could reach the sky with its arms. Its tentacles were said to be thick as oak. Trunks its mouth wide enough to swallow fleets. Some believed it created whirlpools, dragging ships down. Some thought it waited patiently, letting fear spread before striking. All versions agreed on one truth: if the Kraken rose, few would survive, and so respect was demanded, fear was required. The sea was not to be mocked, the Norse myths supported such belief, for their gods were not distant. They interfered, they punished, they reminded men of their place. Odin sought wisdom at all costs. Thor, struck with anger, Loki twisted fate, Ran smiled, and drowned alike. The Kraken fit easily into this pattern. It was a curse when men grew too proud. It was legend when tales were needed to warn the young. It was balance, a living memory of humility. The sea was not chaos without purpose. It was order in the hands of divine will, and the Kraken was one of its enforcers, yet natural truth breathed beneath the legend. A sailor might see a giant squid, rare and terrifying, its arms thrashing its size beyond belief. A whale breaching beneath a vessel might flip it. A whirlpool might open where currents met. A rogue wave might strike from nowhere. To eyes untrained in science, these were monsters. Two minds steeped in myth, these were curses. Two tongues shaped by fear, these were stories, and the name that carried them all was Kraken. Think of a boy listening to a scold in a hall. The fire glows, the harp sounds, the voice tells of voyages, raids, battles, and then it lowers. The scold describes a ship swallowed by the deep. He tells of tentacles rising, he tells of eyes glowing, he tells of gods sending wrath. The boy shivers, he dreams that night of dark waters and rising arms. Years later he rows in awe. He sees the sea boil, he remembers the tale. He whispers the name Kraken, and the legend lives again. The rituals of sailors gave it further life. They poured ale into waves before leaving. They tied charms to prows. They sang quiet songs. They said it was for luck, but each knew it was for respect. Respect for the sea, respect for the gods, respect for what dwelled below. The Kraken was not named, but it was present. It was in the silence, it was in the careful gestures, it was in the fear that bound men together. A legend that shapes behavior becomes truth. A curse that explains fear becomes faith. The Viking world was filled with dangers, but the sea held. The greatest to step upon it was to step into uncertainty and awe. The Kraken embodied that awe. It was not a single creature. It was a symbol of the unknown, the force of the deep made flesh, the memory of drowned men given voice, the fear of storms. Given arms. To call it curse or legend was less important than to call it real, and in their hearts it was real as the stars above. As real as the gods in Asgard, as real as the hammer of Thor. The Kraken was the ocean itself, staring back. So we end this step where we began. Was the Kraken truly a curse from the gods, or was it legend passed from mouth to mouth? Perhaps it was both. Perhaps it was neither, but to the Vikings it was true enough to fear, true enough to honor, true enough to whisper, and that truth is what carries the story to us now. The sea is wide, the night is long, the waves are restless, and the Kraken waits. The fire burns low in the hall, and the scold's voice lingers. He has spoken of heroes, of raids of distant shores, but the part that makes the listeners lean closer is always the sea that cannot be tamed, the sea that cannot be bargained. With the sea that holds power beyond kings and gods, in that sea lives the Kraken, or so they believe. The children clutch at their mother's hands. The old men nod, for they to remember voyagers when the waters shifted without warning, when shadows moved beneath, when bubbles rose from nowhere. The Kraken is not just story, it is memory, it is warning, it is truth told in another form. The Vikings were people of courage, but courage cannot erase fear. It can only ride beside it, and so their courage was sharpened by the fear of the Kraken. A sailor who forgot fear was reckless. A crew that mocked the sea was doomed. The legend reminded them every day, with every oar stroke, with every gust of wind, with every prayer whispered to Odin and Thor. And Ran, the Kraken, was not a monster to be hunted, it was a monster to be respected. Its gift was survival to those who remembered. Its curse was death to those who forgot. Picture a voyage into waters unknown. The sky grows, dark clouds roll thick. The oarsmen breathe heavy, the helmsman steadies. The tiller, the ship creaks with strain. Then a silence falls, a deep, unnatural silence, as if the ocean itself has stopped to listen. The men look at each other. None dare to speak, for in that silence, every man hears the same thought. What if the Kraken stirs? What if the gods are displeased? What if this voyage is cursed? The silence breaks with a sudden boil of water. Fish leap in frenzy, bubbles rise, a shadow larger than the ship itself glides. Below, the men clutch their shields, they grip their oars tighter. A prayer passes from lip to lip, not for victory in battle, not for treasure or land, but for mercy, mercy from what may rise beneath. The ship holds steady, the shadow fades, the sea calms. Yet no man forgets, every detail will be told again on shore. Each telling will add a little more fear, a little more awe, until the Kraken grows again in. Norse thought the world was balanced between order and chaos. The gods maintained order, but chaos always waited on the edges. Giants in the mountains, spirits in the forests, serpents in the seas. The Kraken was part of that balance. It reminded men that chaos was never far, that gods demanded respect, that pride could bring punishment. It was not only a beast, it was a symbol, a lesson, carved in wave and foam. Some sagas spoke of other sea monsters, but none so feared, none so vast. The Midgard serpent, Jarmungandr, was prophecy, a beast of the end of days, but the Kraken was daily. It was not the doom of gods, it was the doom of men. It could strike on any voyage, it could rise on any sea. It was the terror of the ordinary, the nightmare of the everyday that made it powerful, that made it unforgettably, and yet truth hides in legend. The ocean is vast and hides creatures that still today are rarely seen. The giant squid lives in darkness, its arms lined with suckers. Its beak, capable of tearing whales themselves, vanish in depths and rise in sudden fury. Currents twist into whirlpools, storms crash without warning. A sailor without science explains with story. He sees a dead squid and says, Kraken. He sees a whirlpool and says, Kraken. He sees a ship vanish and says, Kraken. The name becomes the basket for all fears, the explanation for all mysteries, the word that holds the unknown. Still the question is asked, curse or legend? Perhaps it was both. To the sailor who poured ale into the waves, it was cursed. To the skald who sang it in halls, it was legend. To the grieving mother who lost her son, it was truth. To the child who listened by fire, it was memory. The Kraken was many things all at once. That is why it survived. That is why it still breathes in our stories. Imagine a winter night in a village. The snow piles high, the sea roars beyond the cliffs, the hall is warm with firelight. A skald sings of voyagers gone and men lost. He sings of the Kraken. The children shiver, the mothers hush them, the men nod solemnly. The story binds them all together. They share fear, they share respect, they share memory. The Kraken is not just a monster, it is culture, it is community, it is a thread woven into the fabric of their lives. So again, we arrive at the question, was the Kraken truly sent by gods as punishment? Or was it a tale born of fear and nature's strangeness? The answer remains as vast as the sea itself. Perhaps both, perhaps neither. What matters is that the Vikings believed. What matters is that they whispered the name. What matters is that they lived by the lesson. Respect the sea, respect the gods, respect the unknown, or be taken. The sea remains today, vast and untamed. Science has mapped much, yet mysteries linger. Shadows move below depths. Never touched creatures rise from darkness that were once thought myth. Even now, sailors tell of strange shapes, glowing eyes, and sudden whirlpools. The story endures because the ocean endures. The Kraken lives because the sea still hides more than it reveals. So we close this part with the same whisper that has echoed through centuries. Was the Kraken a curse from the gods? Or was it only a legend? Listen to the waves, and you may hear the answer. Or perhaps you will hear only the question again. The sea is wide, the night is long, the story is not finished, the Kraken waits. In Norse mythology, the world was alive with gods, giants, spirits, and monsters. Every mountain had power. Every tree had meaning. Every storm had will. The people who told these stories did not separate the natural from the supernatural. To them, the two were woven together like threads on a loom. The thunder was Thor. The wisdom was Odin. The trickery was Loki. The sea itself was Ran and Jarmd. The sea was a god, a mother, a grave, and a gift all at once. And within that sea lived more than one terror. The Kraken was the greatest of them. When we ask if the Kraken was curse or legend, we must place it inside this world. In Norse thought, nothing happened without cause. The gods watched, always. A sudden storm was not random. It was a message. A crop that failed was not chance. It was punishment. A voyage that ended in disaster was not fate alone. It was the hand of gods. The Kraken fit this belief perfectly. It was the hand of divine wrath reaching from the deep. It was the reminder that men were small and gods were great. The Norse myths were filled with sea creatures. Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, encircled the world. It lay in the ocean biting its tail until the end of days when it would rise and fight. Thor, NKK, the water spirit, lured people into lakes. The Draugr haunted coasts, dragging sailors down. Sea witches and giants lived at the edge of maps. Yet none of these filled sailors with daily fear like the Kraken. The serpent was for Ragnarok, the end of all things. The Draugr were 4 unlucky men who wandered too close to shore. But the Kraken was for everyone, for every voyage, for every moment when the sea grew too still or too wild. The Kraken was immediate. Picture a longship caught between swells. The sky darkens. The oars lose rhythm. The men feel the ship drag sideways, though no reef lies below. The sea boils with bubbles. A back rises vast and rolling. Arms unfold. Eyes glow pale as moons. The crew cries out to Thor. They pray to Odin. They plead to Ran. They believe they are judged. In that moment, the Kraken is not legend. It is curse. It is punishment for pride. But in the warmth of a hall in winter, the story becomes different. The skald sings. His harp sounds soft. His voice paints the sea alive. He tells of tentacles wrapping around ships. He tells of whirlpools pulling men down. He tells of eyes shining through storm. The listeners shiver, but they smile too. For them, it is legend. It is a story to carry the night. It is a lesson for children. It is a memory for the old. In that moment, the Kraken is not curse. It is legend. The dual nature of the Kraken is what makes it powerful. It lives in fear and in song. It punishes and it entertains. It is divine wrath and human memory. For the Vikings, the difference did not matter. Both were true. Both were useful. The gods demanded respect. The sea demanded fear. The Kraken delivered both. Now let us look closer at its image in myth. The Norse loved symbols. The wolf Fenrir was not only beast, it was fate. The serpent Jormungandr was not only monster, it was the cycle of the world. The tree Yggdrasil was not only wood, it was the cosmos. So too, the Kraken was not only beast, it was the unknown. It was the terror of the deep. It was the reminder that no man could rule the sea, that no ship could sail without risk, that no voyage was free from fear, and this symbolism reached into daily life. When fishermen saw empty nets, they said the Kraken had passed. When sailors saw fish flee, they said the Kraken was rising. When a ship vanished without word, they said the Kraken had taken it. It gave explanation to the unexplainable. It gave shape to grief. It gave order to chaos. Imagine a family waiting by the shore. The ship was due days ago. The sea remains empty. The horizon silent. No sails appear. The family mourns. They need reason. They need story. They whisper that the Kraken took the men. It is sorrow, but it is also comfort. The gods chose. The sea claimed. It was not meaningless. It was the Kraken. And so we return again to the question, curse or legend? The answer is not clear, but to the Norse it did not need to be. The Kraken was part of their mythology, whether it was divine or human in origin. It lived in belief. It lived in fear. It lived in song. That was enough. That made it real. So as you drift into thought, remember this. The Vikings sailed seas without maps. They lived in a world where storms spoke and gods judged. In that world, the Kraken swam. It swam in dark waters. It swam in minds. It swam in stories, and it waits still now in ours. The sea is wide. The night is long. The myths are alive, and the Kraken waits. The hall is warm, but the tale it holds is cold. The scold's words speak of waves of shadows, of arms stretching from darkness. The listeners see it in their minds. Though no eye has measured it, the Kraken lives, because memory feeds it, because fear needs it, because men who face endless seas cannot sail without giving shape to their dread. So we ask again, was the Kraken a curse from the gods? Or was it a legend grown from whispers? The answer hides between them, and that is why the story never ends. The Norse lived in balance between faith and fear. Every storm carried a god's voice, every calm carried a blessing, every loss carried meaning. The Kraken was not outside this system, it was inside, woven into it. The gods did not always appear as men, they could appear as beasts, as storms, as monsters. Odin gave wisdom, but also demanded sacrifice. Thor defended men, but brought thunder. Loki twisted fate, ran, smiled, and drowned alike. The Kraken could be their tool, their hand, their reminder. The monster became the mask of divine wrath, yet the Kraken was also practical. It explained what no man could explain. A ship vanished with no witness. The Kraken took it. Nets rose empty for weeks. The Kraken had passed the sea, boiled in calm. The Kraken stirred these explanations, soothed. They gave grief a reason. They gave fear a focus. They gave men power to believe they understood. And in believing, they felt less helpless. Consider the voyage of a trader sailing south. He carries furs and amber, his ship is laden, his crew is strong. The sky is clear, but 3 days out, a storm rises. Winds scream, the sea climbs, the ship rolls. He sees a shadow vast as an island. He prays, he believes. The Kraken rises, his ship survives. He returns, he tells the tale. Around the fire, men lean closer. They add details, arms longer than trees, eyes like moons, whirlpools like mouths. The tale grows. He has given fear new flesh, he has given legend new bone. So the Kraken becomes more than beast, it becomes symbol. The wolf, Fenrir, was fate, the serpent Jarmungandr was the cycle. The tree Yggdrasil was the cosmos, the Kraken was the unknown. It was the deep given face, it was the chaos of sea turned into form. It reminded men of their place, it kept hubris low, it kept respect high. It said to every sailor, you are not master here, you are guest, and the sea may expel you now. Think of the rituals, small but constant ale poured into waves, charms tied to prows, songs hummed in low voice. They said it was for luck, but each man knew it was for respect. They feared to anger gods. They feared to stir the Kraken, for if pride called it, then doom followed, if silence disrespected, then wrath came. These gestures gave comfort, they bound the crew they made. The voyage feels safer, even if the sea was still vast, even if the Kraken was only in their minds. S'imagine to the family ashore, waiting. A ship does not return, days pass, the horizon is empty, the grief is heavy, they whisper, the Kraken took them. It is cruel comfort, but it is comfort, the loss is not random, it is not meaningless. The gods chose the Kraken, claimed the story softens despair, the legend gives reason, and reason gives strength. Still the question lingers, curse or legend, perhaps both. Perhaps neither. For the Vikings' truth was not fixed, truth was lived. If every man believed, then it was true. If every child feared, then it was real. If every skald sang, then it was alive, and so it is alive still. The sea remains vast, the fear remains. Deep the story remains strong. The sagas were filled with such blends, giants who walked mountains, trolls who hid in caves, spirits who sang in forests, but the Kraken was closer, more present, more feared. It was not bound to the end of days, it was bound to every voyage it could rise. Tonight it could strike tomorrow, that made it powerful, that made it a tip to land. Yet even today the ocean hides shapes, we do not know, shadows move below, cameras catch glimpses of arms, long and pale whales, bare. Scars from battles unseen, the sea glows with light in storms of living fire. These truths remind us why the Vikings believed. They remind us why the legend endures, for when the sea is endless and the night is long, every man imagines what waits below, and every man names it Kraken. So the skald closes his song, the hall falls silent, the fire burns low, the people breathe as one. The story has done its work, it has taught respect, it has carved fear, it has bound memory. The Kraken lives not in flesh but in belief, and belief is enough. The gods watch, the sea waits, the legend breathes, the Kraken waits. The sea was the great stage of Viking life. Every voyage began with prayer and ended with silence. The gods ruled the sky and the earth, but the ocean was different. The ocean was wild. The ocean was cruel. The ocean was filled with mystery. When men spoke of storms, they spoke of Thor. When they spoke of wisdom, they spoke of Odin. When they spoke of trickery, they spoke of Loki. But when they spoke of terror in the waves, when they spoke of ships dragged down, when they spoke of shadows larger than mountains, they spoke of the Kraken. The Kraken was not only a beast, it was judgment, it was wrath. It was the hand of gods reaching from the deep. The Norse believed that no disaster came without cause. If a field failed, the gods were displeased. If lightning struck, the gods had spoken. If a voyage ended in drowning, the gods had sent the Kraken. It was punishment for pride. It was punishment for forgetting respect. It was punishment for mocking the sea. Imagine a captain boasting in a hall before his voyage. He claims no storm can touch him. He laughs at rituals. He refuses to pour ale into the waves. He refuses to call on Odin for guidance. He sails proud and careless. Days later, the ship does not return. The village whispers, the Kraken has taken him. The gods have judged. His pride has sunk into the deep dot. Now imagine another crew. They are humble. They pour ale into the sea. They tie charms to their prow. They sing songs of respect. They pray to Ran and Engid. A storm rises but passes. A shadow moves beneath but fades. They return home alive. The people whisper, the gods spared them. The Kraken did not rise. The lesson is clear. Respect is life. Pride is death. This made the Kraken more than monster. It was a moral force. It shaped behavior. It bound men together in fear and in faith. A curse does not need to be seen to be real. If men believe it, then it guides them. If families whisper it, then it comforts them. If skalds sing it, then it lives. The Kraken lived in this way. As curse, as legend, as both, the Norse myths supported such visions. Ran, the goddess of the drowned, cast her net into the sea. She claimed men for her halls. Engjerd calmed the seas when he was pleased. Odin punished through storms. Thor smote with thunder. Each god had power over man. The Kraken was not written in the oldest myths, but it grew into them. It became the net of Ran. It became the storm of Thor. It became the shadow of Odin's judgment. To see it was to see divine wrath. But fear also gave shape to imagination. A sailor sees bubbles in calm water. He sees fish scatter. He feels the whole shift. His mind fills the void. He paints arms in the deep. He paints eyes glowing. He whispers, Kraken. When he returns, he tells the tale. Others add to it. The monster grows. It becomes godly. It becomes eternal. The gods are invoked to explain it. The gods are invoked to strengthen it. A legend becomes a curse. A curse becomes a legend. Picture a hall filled with villagers. A skald sings of a ship taken. He sings of whirlpools that opened like mouths. He sings of arms that reached higher than masts. He sings of God sending judgment. The listeners nod. They believe. They accept. They take the lesson into their lives. The Kraken has spoken. The gods have spoken. Respect the sea. Respect the gods. Even today, the ocean reminds us why such stories lived. Rogue waves rise from calm seas. Whirlpools form from colliding currents. Squids larger than ships rise to die. Whales vanish into depths. Shadows move unseen. For the Vikings, these were curses. For them, the Kraken was the answer. Curse or legend, it did not matter. What mattered was survival. What mattered was humility. So we ask again, was the Kraken a curse from the gods? Was it only a legend? The answer floats between them. It was curse in belief. It was legend in song. It was truth in hearts. It was story in minds. It was both at once. That duality is why it survived. That duality is why it still waits in our stories. The sea is vast. The gods are watching. The men are small. The Kraken waits. The sea is calm, yet every sailor feels the weight of silence. The oars rise and fall. The longship glides forward. The air is thick with mist. The horizon is gone. The men whisper to one another. They remember stories told by the fire. They remember warnings given by elders. They remember the name Kraken. Suddenly, the water bubbles. Fish scatter in every direction. The ship lurches as if pulled by unseen hands. A sailor leans over the side. His eyes widen. He sees a shape vast as a hall moving beneath the waves. He whispers Kraken. The word spreads like fire. No one dares to shout. No one dares to move. The helmsman calls on Odin. The oarsmen grip their handles. The shadow fades. The sea. The ship moves on. But the fear remains. When the crew returns home, they tell the story. The water boiled. The fish fled. The hull groaned. A shadow moved. The gods were angry. The Kraken rose. The listeners lean close. They add their own fears, arms longer than masts, eyes glowing in the dark. A whirlpool that almost swallowed the ship. The story grows. The legend deepens. The curse feels real. Another tale speaks of a crew that mocked the sea. They laughed at rituals. They refused to pour ale into the waves. They called the Kraken only a story. Days later, a storm struck. The ship vanished. No body returned. The village mourned. The skald sang. He said the Kraken took them. He said the gods punished them. The people believed. The lesson was clear. Respect or perish. Fear or fall. The Kraken does not forgive pride. The Norse lived in a world where every act had meaning. To eat was ritual. To speak was oath. To sail was prayer. They believed that the sea listened. They believed that the gods watched. They believed that monsters enforced divine will. The Kraken was not just danger. It was justice. It was balance. It was the sea speaking in the only language men understood. Power, silence, terror. Picture again the longship on the open water. The night is black. Stars flicker between clouds. The men row in rhythm. Then a whirlpool opens ahead. The ship spins. The oars fly from hands. The men scream. The whirl grows wider. It pulls them down. Some cry to Thor. Some call to Ran. Some whisper Kraken. The ship breaks. The men vanish. On shore, the news spreads. The Kraken has taken them. It was not chance. It was curse. And yet sometimes the sea spares. A crew pours ale. They sing to the gods. They row with respect. They see bubbles. They feel a shadow. But the water calms. The ship survives. They return home. They say the Kraken rose, but let them go. The gods were merciful. The village whispers with awe. The crew is honored. They are men who faced the Kraken and lived. The legend is stronger for it. These encounters shaped the Viking view of the world. The Kraken was not myth alone. It was experience told in fear. It was curse explained in faith. It was legend carved in memory. Children heard the stories and grew to believe. Sailors felt the dread and rowed with caution. Skalds sang the verses and made it eternal. The Kraken lived in every wave. The question remains, was it curse or legend? To the sailor who vanished, it was curse. To the family who mourned, it was curse. To the boy who listened by fire, it was legend. To us who remember, it is both. And perhaps that is the secret. The Kraken was not bound to one truth. It was many truths. It was every fear, every story, every prayer bound into one name. And so this part closes with silence. The ship rests. The men sleep. The sea is still. But the memory stirs. A ripple moves. A shadow turns. The gods watch. The Kraken waits. The sea is endless and the longship is small. The men row in silence. The wind is low and the sail hangs still. They know the sea can change in an instant. They know the sea hides more than it reveals. They whisper stories to keep themselves awake. They whisper the name that lives in every shadow. They whisper, Kraken. Was the Kraken a curse from the gods, or was it only a legend of fear? This is the question we carry still. The Viking sailor did not ask in such words. For him, it was real enough. For him, the question was not if it existed, but when it would rise. He did not wonder if the Kraken was myth. He wondered if today would be the day he would see its arms break the surface. That was the weight of belief. Imagine the sound of oars cutting water. The ship glides forward. The helmsman watches stars. The sky grows dark. A fog rolls in. The men strain their eyes. The sea bubbles. Fish leap. A shadow moves beneath, larger than anything known, wider than the ship, deeper than thought. A sailor gasps. Kraken. The name moves through the crew like wind. The shadow fades. The ship survives. But no one forgets. They carry the memory home. They tell it to wives. They tell it to children. They tell it to schools. And with each telling, the Kraken grows. This is how legends live. They live not in flesh, but in words. They live not in bones, but in memory. They need no proof. They need only fear. The Kraken had both. The sea gave fear. The sailors gave words. Together they made a monster greater than any storm. But the Kraken was not only terror. It was lesson. The gods were teachers as much as rulers. They punished pride. They punished disrespect. A man who ignored rituals might pay. A crew who mocked offerings might vanish. The Kraken was the hand of divine wrath. It was the reminder that mortals must bow to higher powers. Picture a crew that refused to honor the sea. They mocked the rituals. They poured no ale. They tied no charms. They sailed proud. The storm rose sudden. The waves crashed. The ship rolled. Then silence. No return. The village whispered, "The Kraken has taken them. The gods have judged. Their pride is broken. Their lesson is carved in water." Now, picture another crew, humble and faithful. They pour ale. They sing songs of respect. They whisper prayers to Ran and Nenjid. A shadow rises. The sea boils. The ship rocks. The men grip their oars, but the water calms. The shadow fades. The ship sails on. They return alive. The village whispers, "The gods spared them. The Kraken rose, but let them go." They are honored. Their tale joins the saga. Their fear becomes part of legend. The Kraken thus became more than beast. It became balance. It was the weight that kept courage from turning to arrogance. It was the hand that kept pride from growing to great. It was fear that gave courage meaning. Without fear, courage is nothing. With fear, courage is survival. The Kraken gave them that balance. The myths of the Norse were full of such symbols. Fenrir the wolf was fate unbound. Jarmungandr the serpent was the cycle of the world. Yggdrasil, the tree, was the cosmos itself. The Kraken was the deep unknown. It was the sea made flesh. It was chaos given arms. It was divine wrath given form. It was all that men could not master. Even the details of the Kraken spoke of meaning. Its arms reached everywhere. No man could escape. Its back rose like land. It was the illusion of safety that became death. Its mouth was whirlpool. It was the pull of fate. Its eyes were moons. They were the watch of gods. Every image carried weight. Every detail spoke a truth. To fear the Kraken was to fear the unknown. To respect it was to survive. Consider the family waiting on shore. They look to horizon. Days pass. The ship does not return. They grieve. They need reason. They need meaning. They whisper. The Kraken took them. It was not random. It was not meaningless. It was God's. It was judgment. It was the curse. And in that story they find comfort. They find order. They find a way to live with loss. Now think of the skald singing in the hall. His harp rings soft. His voice rises and falls. He sings of battles. He sings of voyages. He sings of storms. Then he sings of the Kraken. Arms like trees. Eyes like fire. A mouth like whirlpool. He says that God sent it. He says it punished pride. The hall falls silent. The children shiver. The men nod. The women hold their breath. The story binds them all. The Kraken becomes real in their minds. It lives because they believe. And so the question echoes again. Was it curse or legend? For the sailor who drowned it was curse. For the child by the fire it was legend. For the grieving widow it was truth. For us now it is story. But story is powerful. Story outlasts ships. Story outlasts storms. Story outlasts men. The Kraken is alive because story is alive. Today we know the sea hides giant squid. We know whales fight unseen battles. We know waves rise from nowhere. We know currents twist ships. But still we feel awe. Still we feel fear. Still we imagine shapes beneath. We still whisper Kraken. The legend survives because the sea remains mystery. The sea is still vast. The sea is still cruel. The sea is still godlike. The Kraken is still with us. So this part closes not with answer, but with question. Was the Kraken curse? Was it legend? Perhaps it was both. Perhaps it was neither. Perhaps it was only the voice of men giving name to fear. But the voice is strong. The story is deep. The sea is wide. And the Kraken waits. The hall is filled with silence as the skald finishes his song, but the silence is not empty, it is full of thought. Full of fear, full of respect for the sea. The Kraken has been spoken into the room, and once it has been spoken, it lingers like smoke. In the rafters the people know it well, some believe it is curse, some believe it is legend, yet all believe it matters, because the sea is their world, and the Kraken is the name they give to the deep. A boy listens and asks his father, was the Kraken real? The father answers, it was as real as the sea itself. The boy frowns, he asks again, was it beast or curse? The father smiles, he says, it was both and it was neither. It was what men saw and what men feared. It was what the gods sent and what the sea hid. It was the truth of their lives, wrapped in one word, Krok. Consider the men at sea again. They row in rhythm, they sing softly, they keep their eyes low. For they know the ocean listens, they believe the gods are near, they believe the Kraken waits. Pride is danger, respect is safety. The Kraken teaches this lesson each day. A lesson that requires no book, no rune, no temple. It is written in wave and foam. It is carved in fury. Imagine the storm rising. The clouds darken, the sea climbs, the ship is tossed. A whirlpool opens arms coil from the deep. The ship tilts. Men cry out, some leap overboard. Others pray. The storm passes, but the tale does not. The tale survives. The men who return tell of arms thicker than trees, eyes glowing in mist, a back rising like land. They say, the Kraken rose. They say, the gods judged. The people believe, the story grows, the legend breathes. But not every sight was cursed, sometimes it was awe. A sailor might see the sea glow with living light, bioluminescence. Paints the water blue and green, he whispers. The Kraken breathes, another might see a whale breach. The sea explodes with power, he whispers. The Kraken stirs. Another might find the body of a squid, arms long, eyes blank, flesh pale, he whispers. The Kraken. Israel, each moment adds to the story, each detail feeds the legend. The Kraken became not only fear, but identity. The Vikings defined themselves by sea. Their gods lived in sea. Their wealth came from sea. Their deaths came in sea. The Kraken was there. Reflection, it was the unknown given voice. It was the fear they could never master. It was the God they could never name. It was them and not them. It was truth and story at once picture. A family waiting by shore, the days pass, no ship returns. They mourn, they whisper. The Kraken has taken them. They find comfort in the thought the loss was not meaningless. It was not chaos. It was choice by gods. It was action by monster. It was story, and story makes grief lighter. Story makes fear bearable. Story makes death less empty. The Kraken gave them that. Now picture a village after a ship returns. A crew tells of arms. They tell of eyes. They tell of whirlpools. They tell of how they poured ale and prayed. They survived. The village celebrates. They whisper. The gods spared them. The Kraken rose, but past the crew was honored. They are men who faced fear and lived. They are proof of respect. They are example to others. Their tale becomes song. Their fear becomes lesson. Their survival becomes hope. The Kraken was thus more than beast, more than curse, more than legend. It was system, it was order, it was part of the web of meaning that bound the Norse world together. Without it, the sea was chaos. With it, the sea was message. With it, the sea was law. The Kraken gave structure to the unknown. Even today, when we speak its name, we feel the same pull. The ocean remains vast. We know more, yet we know little. We map, but still shadows move. We measure, but still mysteries hide. We see squids on cameras. We hear songs of whales. We feel storms strike with no warning. And still we whisper Kraken. We cannot let it go. Because the sea still humbles us. Because the sea still judges us. Because the sea is still godlikes. So we return to the question again. Was the Kraken curse? Was it legend? Perhaps both, perhaps neither. But for the Vikings, it was truth. It was curse when they failed. It was legend when they sang. It was memory when they mourned. It was lesson when they lived. It was everything in one name. And that is why it survives. That is why you hear it now. That is why the story still stirs in your mind. Sea is endless. The gods are silent. The night is long. The Kraken waits. The Vikings left little in written words for most of their age. Their world was carried in memory and in song. The sagas were told by skalds in smoky halls, passed from father to son, from crew to crew, from village to village. Yet among these stories, the sea always held the deepest shadows. It was the realm least understood, most feared, most honored. The Kraken appeared here in fragments, not carved on stones, not inked in runes, but carried in whispers and in verse. A beast vast beyond measure. A shadow that rose like land, arms that reached like trees, a mouth that swallowed whole ships, a curse that punished men, a legend that explained fear. The earliest mentions of such creatures in later writings echo what the Vikings already feared. The 13th century texts from Norway speak of a sea monster so large it was mistaken for an island. They call it Halfgufa, a name for the vast sea smoke or giant fish. It lay upon the water and lured men with schools of fish. When sailors drew near, the creature opened its mouth, swallowing boat and fish alike. This is no invention of later minds. This is a mirror of tales carried long before. It is the Kraken, in another name, the same beast, the same fear. Think of the sailor who first told such a story. He had no parchment, he had no ink, he had only voice and memory. He saw the sea boil, he saw fish scatter, he saw shadow move. He returned home. He spoke in firelight. He said, I saw an island rise, I saw it breathe, I saw it swallow. And men believed, for the sea gave proof. enough proof in storms. Proof in loss, proof in fear. Other sagas speak of whales, so vast they turned seas, red of serpents that coiled around the earth, of giants that strode across waves. The Kraken fit within this world. It was not an alien thought, it was natural. For the Norse, the line between beast and god was thin, very thin. A monster could be tool of gods. A storm could be wrath of gods. A loss could be judgment of gods. The Kraken was all of these at once. Imagine a scold shaping such a tale. He sits in a hall, the harp rings, the fire flickers, the crowd waits. He begins with voyage. He names the crew, he names the gods, he names the seas, then he lowers his voice. He says the sea boiled, he says arms rose, he says eyes glowed, he says the gods judged. The hall is silent. Children clutch mothers, men frown, women hold breath. The story lives. It passes beyond the hall. It sails with the next crew. It waits in the next storm. The Kraken is alive, again the sagas gave. These tales wait, because sagas were memory, they were history and legend blended. They carried truth and myth as one. The Kraken belonged here. It did not need to be proven, it needed only to be told, and once told, it became real. Considered the text. Conan's Skuggsjur, the King's Mirror, written in Norway in the 13th century. It speaks of a monster, vast like land. It says men mistake it for island. It says fish gather around it. It says men try to catch the fish. It says the monster opens mouth and swallows. All this is the Kraken in written form, the same that men feared long before, the same that grew in song and whisper, the same that punished and explained. When we look back now, we see layers, we see truth of giant squid, we see fear of storms, we see loss of ships, we see sorrow of families. But the Vikings saw unity. They saw beasts, they saw God, they saw curse, they saw legend. The Kraken was all at once picture. The crew hearing saga before voyage, they nod, they whisper, they feel dread, they pray, they pour ale, they row with caution. The story shapes their steps, it keeps them humble, it keeps them alive. And when they return, they tell new tales, tales that join old ones, tales that shape the saga. Further the Kraken grows, again. So we ask again, was the Kraken curse? Was it legend? The text suggests both. The sagas suggest both. The families believed, both. The sailors lived, both. The answer remains the same. It was all things at once. The sea is endless. The words are endless. The words are endless. The fear is endless. The Kraken waits. The sea was the book of the Vikings, and every wave was a line written by gods. They had little parchment to record their lives, but they had voices to speak and ears to listen. The sagas were their libraries, and the halls were their schools. By firelight they carried their knowledge forward, and in this knowledge the sea held the deepest chapters. Among storms and giants and gods, one figure always returned, the Kraken. It was never fully described in one place. It was never captured in one rune. Yet it was always present in the fears of sailors and in the verses of squid. The Kraken lived in fragments like foam on water, and these fragments came together into one vast monster. Imagine the skald sitting before a crowd. He plucks his harp. He begins to tell of a voyage. He names the sailors. He names the gods they prayed to. He describes the long ship gliding through the mist. He speaks of the sky turning black. He speaks of the water boiling. He speaks of an island rising, but the island is alive. The arms move. The eyes shine. The mouth opens like a whirlpool. He pauses. The hall is silent. The children stare. The men grip their cups. The women whisper prayers. The tale continues. The Kraken has taken the ship. The gods have spoken. The lesson is given. Such sagas shaped the world more than any law. They carried memory, but they also carried warning. A man might forget a rule, but he would not forget a fear. A boy might not know runes, but he would know the story of the Kraken. He would grow with it. He would row with it. He would whisper it when the sea grew dark. In this way the Kraken became law. Law of the sea. Law of respect. Law of humility. Texts that survive from later centuries echo this fear. The King's Mirror, written in Norway in the 13th century, describes a monster vast beyond measure. It says men mistake it for an island. It says fish gather around it. It says sailors draw near and then it swallows them whole. This is the Kraken given words on page. This is the same shadow that haunted sailors long before. This is proof that legend survived beyond voice. The Kraken entered written memory, but its roots were older. Its roots were in sagas, sung in smoke. Its roots were in whispers carried across waves. Consider the way sailors used such tales. When nets came up empty, they said the Kraken had passed. When fish scattered, they said the Kraken stirred. When storms dragged men down, they said the Kraken rose. It was explanation. It was comfort. It was also discipline. It kept men humble. It kept captains cautious. It kept villagers respectful of the sea. The Kraken was not random. It was message. A message of gods. A message of ocean. A message of fear. Imagine a voyage into the northern seas. The crew rows steady. The helmsman watches the horizon. The water begins to bubble. A strange smell fills the air. Fish leap wildly. A shadow glides beneath. The men pray. They whisper. They call on Thor. They call on Ran. They grip their oars tighter. The shadow fades. The sea. They return alive. Their tale becomes saga. The saga becomes lesson. The Kraken grows again. In another village, a ship fails to return. Families mourn. No bodies are found. The sea is silent. The people whisper. The Kraken has taken them. It was the gods. It was punishment. It was curse. The grief becomes bearable when it has name. The sorrow becomes lighter when it has meaning. The Kraken gives that meaning. The Kraken fills the silence. These patterns repeat across generations. Each story adds to the image. Some say the Kraken has arms like mountains. Some say its back is rough like stone. Some say it creates whirlpools with each breath. Some say it lures fish and then men. Each vision builds upon another. Each telling makes the beast larger. Each saga makes the legend eternal. The Norse mind did not separate natural and supernatural. To them all was one. A storm was a god's voice. A whale was a sign. A squid was a monster. A whirlpool was a mouth. The Kraken was born from this union. It was both curse and legend at once. It was both natural and divine. It was both memory and myth. That is why it endured. Picture the hall again. The fire burns low. The skald's voice deepens. He sings of a ship dragged down. He sings of men lost. He sings of God's judging. The crowd believes. The story becomes law. The children will carry it. The sailors will whisper it. The widows will weep it. The Kraken will live. The sea itself seemed to confirm the legend. Rogue waves rose from flat calm. Whirlpools opened where currents met. Squids washed ashore, pale and vast. Whales bore scars from deep battles. Two men who lacked charts and science, these were not accidents. They were curses. They were signs. They were proof. And proof fed legend. Proof gave it roots. Proof made it breathe. So the Kraken entered every layer of life. It was curse when men drowned. It was legend when skalds sang. It was memory when children dreamed. It was symbol when men prayed. It was fear when sailors rowed. It was lesson when captains commanded. It was explanation when families grieved. The Kraken was all of these. And so again, we ask, was it curse or legend? Perhaps it was both. Perhaps it was neither. Perhaps it was the name for what men could not face in silence. Perhaps it was the mask of gods placed over chaos. Perhaps it was simply the voice of fear. But for the Vikings it was real enough to whisper, real enough to respect, real enough to fear. The sagas remind us that truth is not only what is seen, truth is also what is believed. If all believe, then it is true. If all fear, then it is real. If all sing, then it is alive. The Kraken was alive in this way, alive in memory, alive in story, alive in fear, alive in respect. Today the sea still holds mysteries. Shadows still move. Squid still rise from deep. Whales still vanish. Storms still strike. We know more, yet we still wonder. We still whisper, Kraken. The legend survives because the sea remains. The sea is vast. The sea is dark. The sea is endless. The Kraken waits. The question has lived for centuries. Could the Kraken have been real? Could there truly have been a beast so vast that it pulled ships beneath the waves? Or was it only the mind of man painting shadows larger than life? This is the question the Vikings carried. It is the question the sagas whisper. It is the question you carry now as you listen. The sea is wide, the sea is dark, the sea hides what it wishes, and in those depths answers drift beyond reach. The Viking sailor had no charts, he had no science to explain rogue waves, he had no instruments to measure currents, he had only eyes and fear and memory. He saw the sea boil. He saw fish scatter, he saw shadows move, he filled the unknown with form, he named it Kraken, and once named, it lived in whispers, it lived in songs, it lived in fear. Modern minds seek explanation. They ask, could the Kraken have been giant squid? Science tells us yes, there are squids that reach lengths of more than 10 meters, some perhaps even more. They live deep in the ocean, they rise only rarely, but when they rise, they leave marks, whales, bear scars from their battles. Sailors have found remains washed ashore. Imagine a Viking crew encountering such a body, pale arms, spread longer than the ship, suckers big as shields, eyes blank, but enormous. Would they not believe in monster? Would they not tell the tale? Would the tale not grow until it became divine, until it became legend, until it became curse? Others suggest the Kraken was whirlpool. The northern seas are filled with twisting currents. They meet, they spin, they open mouths, and the sea ships caught within are dragged down. A crew might see water swirl, they might hear the roar, they might feel the pull. They would believe they were swallowed. They would believe the Kraken had risen. They would return home. They would tell the tale. It would grow. It would live some. Say rogue waves were the monster, a wall of water rising without warning, a wall higher than mast, a wall striking. From nowhere a crew would see shadow, they would see darkness, they would feel doom, they would call it Kraken, for what else could explain it? What else could give meaning? What else could hold the fear? And yet even with such explanations, the legend lives for the Kraken is more than beast. It is symbol, it is story, it is memory, it is the lesson that the sea cannot be mastered. It is the reminder that men are small, it is the fear that keeps courage from turning to arrogance, it is the name for all that cannot be known. Picture, again, a long ship at sea. The oars cut water, the men sing low. The horizon is empty, then the sea begins to bubble. Fish leap, the ship rocks, a shadow moves beneath. One sailor whispers, "Kraken," the others nod. They see it, to whether it is squid or wave or whirlpool or nothing at all. It is Kraken now, because the mind has spoken, because the name has power, because the story is stronger than silence. The villagers on shore believe as well when the ship does not return. They do not say it was chance, they do not say it was storm, they say it was Kraken. They say the gods judged, they say respect was broken. They say pride was punished. The story gives them reason, the story gives them order, the story gives them strength. This is why the legend endures. This is why we still speak it. Science may explain the squid. Science may chart the currents. Science may measure the waves. But story lives deeper, story lives longer, story carries fear into meaning. The Kraken is not only about truth, it is about need, the need to explain, the need to warn, the need to remember, the need to respect. And so again we ask, could the Kraken have been real? Perhaps in flesh, perhaps in fear, perhaps in both. The answer may never be given fully. The sea hides its secrets well, but the legend is real. Real in memory, real in culture, real in song, real in song, real in fear, real in respect. The sea remains vast, the night remains long. The questions remain unanswered, and the Kraken waits. The sea does not reveal its secrets easily. The Viking sailors knew this with every stroke of their oars. They had seen whales vanish into the depths, as if swallowed by unseen mouths. They had seen storms rise from calm skies in moments. They had seen waves climb higher than any mast. Each of these sights demanded an answer. Each of these fears demanded a name. The name was Kraken. To speak, it was to give shape to chaos. To whisper, it was to remind each other that the sea was alive. The question still lingers. Could the Kraken have been real? Perhaps it was squid. Perhaps it was whirlpool. Perhaps it was wave. Or perhaps it was all of these bound together in one legend. When the sailor saw tentacle, he added arms. When the sailor saw whirlpool, he added mouth. When the sailor saw island rise and sink, he added back. Piece by piece the beast grew, each story layered upon another, each detail carried forward, until the Kraken was larger than truth, until it was larger than the sea itself. Imagine the crew at sea. They see fish scatter. They feel the ship shake. They see bubbles rise. They do not know science. They know story. They whisper, Kraken. The word binds them together. It explains what cannot be explained. It comforts even as it terrifies. It gives the unknown a form. It gives fear a voice. Families on shore also whisper the name. When the ship does not return, they do not say chance. They do not say accident. They say Kraken. They say the gods judged. They say pride was punished. The loss gains weight. The grief gains order. The sorrow gains story. Without the Kraken, grief is chaos. With the Kraken, grief is lesson. With the Kraken, grief is bearable. The skalds carry this forward. They sing of the beast. They sing of arms like trees. They sing of eyes like moons. They sing of God sending wrath through sea. The hall is silent. The children shiver. The men nod. The women bow their heads. The Kraken is real in that moment. It lives in sound. It lives in thought. It lives in fear. Modern eyes seek proof. They point to giant squid. They point to whales scarred by battles deep. They point to rogue waves that rise from flat calm. They point to whirlpools spun by colliding tides. These are natural. These are measurable. But the legend is not erased. The legend remains. Because legend is not only about proof, it is about need. The need to explain. The need to warn. The need to teach. The Kraken served all these needs. That is why it endured. That is why it endures still. The dual nature is its strength. Curse or legend, beast or symbol, natural or divine, it can be all. It can shift to fit the moment. It can be God's punishment when pride grows too great. It can be natural wonder when shadow passes beneath hull. It can be explanation when families mourn. It can be story when children dream. It can be all at once. That is why it never dies. That is why the sea still whispers its name. Imagine now the sailor alone on night watch. The sea is black. The stars are dim. The wind is low. He hears bubbles. He sees faint glow. He feels shadow move. His heart beats faster. He whispers Kraken. He does not need proof. He does not need sight. He has fear. Fear is enough. Fear paints arms beneath him. Fear paints eyes glowing. Fear paints mouth waiting. He believes. Belief makes it real. And so again we ask, could the Kraken have been real? Perhaps not in flesh as described. Perhaps no beast was truly as vast as an island. Perhaps no arms were as wide as forests. Yet in another way it was real. Real in memory. Real in grief. Real in respect. Real in story. Real in fear. That is reality too. That is truth too. The sea holds mysteries still. Cameras dive deep, yet shadows linger. Scientists measure, yet shapes slip past. Whales bear scars of battles unseen. Squids rise pale and vast. Storms roar from nowhere. Waves strike like walls. Even now we whisper. Even now we imagine. Even now we call it Kraken. Because the legend lives. Because the need lives. Because the fear lives. So this part closes with no final answer. Only the same question carried across centuries. Was the Kraken curse? Was it legend? Perhaps it was both. Perhaps it was neither. Perhaps it was truth hidden in fear. Perhaps it was fear hidden in truth. The sea remains vast. The night remains long. The answer remains hidden. The Kraken waits. The sea has always been a mirror of human fear and hope. For the Vikings it was road and grave together. They trusted it and they feared it. They sailed upon it, yet they bowed before it. In this sea the Kraken lived. Whether as curse or legend, it did not matter. It was real in their minds. It was real in their hearts. It was real in their songs. And because it was real to them, it became real to us. We have asked the question again and again. Was the Kraken a curse from the gods, or was it only a legend? The sagas gave no final answer. The skalds gave no final answer. The sailors gave no final answer. But each gave something greater. They gave us story. They gave us memory. They gave us the shape of fear carried across centuries. Picture the longship one last time. The oars rise and fall. The men sing low. The sea stretches endless. A fog drifts in. A shadow moves below. The men whisper Kraken. Perhaps it is squid. Perhaps it is wave. Perhaps it is only imagination. But the fear is real. The respect is real. The story is real. That is enough. That is always enough. The Kraken was punishment when pride grew too great. It was curse when men forgot rituals. It was legend when children listened by fire. It was symbol when families grieved. It was explanation when ships did not return. It was lesson when skalds sang. It was memory when widows wept. It was hope when sailors prayed. It was everything in one word. Kraken. Now think of the sagas once more. They carried giants and gods and wolves and serpents. Yet the Kraken stood beside them without needing prophecy. It did not wait for end of world. It waited in daily life. It waited in every voyage. It waited in every fear. That made it powerful. That made it eternal. Modern science may explain part of it. The squid is real. The whirlpool is real. The rogue wave is real. But explanation does not erase legend. Explanation does not erase need. Explanation does not erase fear. The Kraken is more than body. It is more than wave. It is more than squid. It is story. It is lesson. It is memory. So as we close this long voyage together, we ask again, was the Kraken curse or legend? The answer does not matter. What matters is that the sea is still vast. What matters is that respect is still required. What matters is that stories still bind us. What matters is that you feel the same whisper the Vikings felt. The sea is alive. The gods are watching. The night is long. The Kraken waits. And now, dear listener, our story draws to an end. You have walked with the Vikings. You have sailed in their ships. You have heard their sagas. You have faced their fears. You have whispered their monster. The Kraken has lived again in your mind. That is the gift of story. That is the gift of legend. That is the gift of memory. If you have listened this far, you have sailed with us across many waves. You have followed the question across storms. You have carried the story in silence. And now I thank you. For stories live only when shared. Stories breathe only when heard. Stories last only when remembered. You have kept this one alive. Before we part, I ask you for one gift. Let this story travel further. Let it sail beyond this night. Let it reach new shores. Subscribe if you wish to hear more. Like if you wish to keep the fire burning. Share if you wish to keep the legend alive. Each small act is another or stroke. Each small act carries the ship onward. Each small act lets the Kraken wait in more minds. And so we end, not with fear, but with peace. The sea is calm. The ship rests. The men sleep. The gods are silent. The night is gentle. The Kraken drifts deep. Perhaps it will rise again. Perhaps it will not. But the story will. The story always will. Because stories are endless. Because stories are stronger than death. Because stories are what we leave behind. So close your eyes, breathe deep, hear the waves, feel the oars. Remember the saga. Remember the fear. Remember the lesson. The sea is vast. The gods are silent. The night is long. And somewhere beneath the water, the Kraken waits. The sea has carried us far, and now we return to shore. We have spoken of the Kraken in fear and in awe. We have asked again and again, was it curse or was it legend? We have searched the sagas and the songs. We have followed the sailors and the skalds. We have listened to the whispers of families waiting by empty shores. We have looked into the eyes of children listening by firelight, and always the answer has drifted away like mist. For the Kraken is not one thing. It is many. It is curse. It is legend. It is story. It is symbol. It is truth of fear and truth of respect. That is why it endures. That is why it has sailed across centuries. Think once more of the longship. The oars dip. The waves rise. The men sing. A shadow stirs below. The sea bubbles. The fear spreads. The name passes from mouth to mouth. Kraken. That moment has lived for 1,000 years. That moment lives now in your mind. That moment is proof that the story still breathes. The sagas were not only entertainment. They were maps of meaning. They told the people how to live. They told them when to fear. They told them when to respect. They told them when to pray. The Kraken was not only monster, it was teacher. It was law. It was balance. It was the voice of gods clothed in arms and eyes. It was the memory of the sea-given body. The Viking sailors may be gone. Their ships may be broken. Their halls may be silent. But the Kraken remains. It remains in words. It remains in thought. It remains in story. It remains in us. Every time we speak its name, we keep it alive. Every time we imagine the deep, we see its shape. Every time we respect the sea, we hear its voice. That is the power of legend. That is the gift of story. Perhaps you feel your eyes grow heavy now. Perhaps you feel the waves beneath you. Perhaps you hear the oars in rhythm. Perhaps you sense the shadow below. Do not fear. It is only story. It is only memory. It is only legend. But remember the lesson. Respect what you do not control. Fear what you cannot master. Honor what is greater than you. The sea taught this. The Kraken taught this. The story teaches still. As we part, I thank you. You have listened across long waters. You have carried the question with patience. You have followed the tale with calm. In doing so, you have kept the Kraken alive. You have given it breath once more. You have honored the sailors who feared. You have honored the skalds who sang. You have honored the families who wept. That is what story does. It binds past to present. It binds fear to memory. It binds us all. And now, one final request. If you wish to keep sailing with us, if you wish to hear more tales of monsters and myths, if you wish to wander again across oceans of story, then let this journey continue. Subscribe to this channel. Leave your mark with a like. Share with others who seek rest in tales. Each small act is an oar in the water. Each small act carries the ship forward. Each small act keeps the fire burning. With you, the voyage does not end. With you, the Kraken lives. So close your eyes now. The waves are calm. The stars are kind. The gods are quiet. The night is long. Let sleep take you as gently as the tide. Dream of ships. Dream of sagas. Dream of shadows deep. The sea is endless. The stories are endless. And the Kraken waits.